Since it was first launched, the Enyaq has been somewhat of a success for Škoda. However, since it's been launched, there's a lot more cars come into its market space, good cars. So to find out whether or not the newly revised one is still as good as we've thought it to be and still an AutoEV firm favourite, I decided to bring one to a ski resort in the Czech Republic. Because why not? Welcome to this week's road test review, welcome to the newly revised Škoda Enyaq, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before I get started on this week's road test review of Škoda's revised Enyaq, it is the time where I would just ask a smidgen of a favour from you, if you don't mind. Could you just make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel? Then when you've done that, press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll be notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched the review, if you enjoy it, and I sincerely hope you do, I have travelled quite some distance and it is, well, bloody freezing where I am at the moment. Give it a little thumbs up, and of course, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about Škoda's new Enyaq, and of course on the AutoEV channel on the whole. Now, we've done a sneak peek with this car, and in fairness, there's not a massive amount to tell you about that we didn't already tell you there, but I have driven the car for the first time and there has been some changes, which is a good thing, because as I say, this market space, this D-sector medium-sized all-electric SUV is bursting at the seams now. It wasn't when the original Enyaq was launched, but of course Volkswagen with their MEB platform, which the Enyaq sits in, has expanded somewhat, and we've now got cars such as the Cupra Taviscan. It also underpins such cars such as the Ford Explorer, the Ford Capri. We've obviously seen such things such as the Renault Scenic, revised Kia EV6, and a lot of Chinese brands come into the fray as well. However, probably more important than all of those has been what Škoda themselves have done. They've launched the Elroq, their smaller all-electric SUV, which we tried last year at the tail end of 2024, and it's brilliant. And it did raise the question, would you still buy an Enyaq if the Elroq is as good as it is? Why? Well, as I say, to find out, I've flown out to the Czech Republic to have a drive in the newly revised Enyaq to see whether or not it's still worthy of your attention. However, as always, before we start the main review, let's just take a brief look at the main points of Škoda's new Enyaq. So this is a mild facelift with a Škoda's medium-sized D-segment electric SUV, which, as before, will feature both SUV and coupe body styles. This styling adopts the Czech company's new modern solid styling theme, first shown in production form on the smaller Elroq. Two battery sizes are available, a 59 kWh one for a range of up to 268 miles, or a larger 77 kWh one for up to 365 miles, according to WLTP test cycles. Three trim levels are available in the standard range, either the SEL, Edition or Sportline. A VRS model will follow. Hand prices start at £39,000 and go up to £50,000 depending on model and specification chosen. So far so good, and so far familiar Enyaq. But as I say, with the small Elroq snapping at its heels, is it worth the premium? Well, of course, the only way we can find that out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that, even here in the Czech Republic, is still the AutoEV one. Okay, now, as I say, I've done a sneak peek with the car. We've talked over styling, we've talked over a few things. I will put a link up to that if you want to go and have a look at that video. I don't have a huge amount of time when I'm out here. I've been driving a lot today. There's a lot been packed into today. So I've got a real handle on how it drives the car. But I will walk you around the styling changes, because I say it is a mild facelift, not an entirely new car in some respects. But it's a very important car. Okay, so let's start at the front. Well, it adopts, as I say, Škoda's modern solid styling theme. This is what they're calling it. And gone is this sort of like the big plastic grille that's not a grille on the front of it. It was maybe the only incongruous thing about the old car in some respects, because obviously it followed the old styling theme with the combustion engine ones that have that really quite nice big Škoda grille, but you don't need a grille in an electric car, so they just filled it with black plastic. The only way you could get round that was to option it with the crystal face, which was all the LED lights that went across the front. You don't get that anymore, that's gone now. Instead you get this, which is called the tech deck, and it's this area here. Now we saw this obviously on the Elroq. Apologies, I've got the key in my pocket, and every time I move the car locks and unlocks, so apologies. You get this tech deck here, which was on the smaller Elroq. So all the sort of like the technology is encased into this area here, not unlike what Polestar do with their Smart Zone on some of their cars. And it tidies the front up, I think. So no longer do you have that big area of plastic on the front. And I think it looks really neat and stylish. So you get your main lights now down here. So it's a split light. A lot of manufacturers are doing this. Audi, Porsche, BMW, obviously. Your main LED lights are down there, and up here what you now have is your DRLs and your turn indicators. And as you can see, they're now sort of like little eyelashes that go across the front of the car which illuminate. I think it looks really smart. I really like this. See, here's your turn indicators. Gone is the flying chicken badge though. You just get the Škoda lettering across the front. But the bonnet still has that quite nice sculpted look to it, where you've almost got like the two almost nostrils that just flare up at either side, which is nice, and the valley that runs down into the middle there. You get a forward-facing camera there, obviously, and then all the cooling is done down at the bottom there. That's your grille, and obviously it keeps the batteries nice and cool. They've also done away with chrome on the car, and you'll see that as we go around it. Big talk of sustainability with Škoda at the moment, and you now get this, what they call dark chrome, which is just a sort of like a more kind of titanium finished plastic trim, which is quite nice. And again, depending on the colour you go for on the car, I think that looks quite nice on it. You know, the darker colours, it makes it look quite premium, which is something that I think Škoda are doing really well at the moment, especially with the materials that they use. But yeah, that's your big change round about the front of the car. That's the main change there with this new tech deck. But it's still a really good looking car. And in fact, I think it's changed for the better, because I say it's done away with that big sort of like plastic area at the front, and I think it looks really neat and stylish now. Now, if you're wondering what the noise is in the background, there's a man just decided to pull up on a big lorry and start loading things over there. But there we go. I'm running out of lights, I need to do it. Hope you don't mind. Right, two body styles still available, either the SUV or the coupe. They remain the same physical size, but their drag coefficients have dropped. They've managed to get aero working really well on this car again. There's some air curtains just at the front there that take airflow around from the front down the flanks of the car. If you go for an SUV like this, the CD drops from 0.26 to 0.24, but a coupe is even slipperier at 0.22. It's Škoda's most efficient car in terms of aerodynamic efficiency, so well done, guys. But as I say, in terms of its actual physical size, it stays the same. So if you've got an Enyaq at the moment and you're worried about your garage or your parking space, don't. It's no different. Okay, wheel sizes. They start at 19s and go up to 21s. This particular car is sitting on 21-inch wheels. We'll talk about trims and stuff later on. You still have this wee bit of black plastic trim there, but it's now a gloss black plastic. It doesn't have the sort of like the fake vent style thing in it as well. I'm still never very sure whether that's needed or not, but anyway, it's there anyway. But of course, the big change on this terms of the side styling is this area down here, this silver finish. Now that's only on the SUVs. If you go for a coupe, that's body colour. Okay, so the SUV gets this done in that contrasting silver, irrespective of what colour you go for. And as I say, if you go for a darker colour, like the new sort of like dark olive colour, they've got the new dark green, which is lovely, but one of my colleagues grabbed that car before I had a chance to get it. But this dark grey, which is really nice, I think that's quite nice. I say it looks quite premium. Your standard roof rails again, privacy glass at the back, charging flap on this side and big rear spoiler there. So from the side profile, apart from that silver trim down the bottom, there's no real way to tell that this is the facelifted car. But I still think, as I say, they didn't really need to change much, because I think it's such a good looking car, the Enyaq. Now around the back of the car, there's even less to tell you that this is the facelifted car, apart from the fact that the new Škoda lettering's there with the accent above the S there. And it's not got Enyaq IV now, it just says Enyaq there. Your model designation for your battery size is across on that side, obviously, and as I say, you see more of that titanium sort of like silver finish down at the bottom there, and a gloss black bit at the back there. Reverse camera tucked underneath there as normal, and as I say, very aero efficient. You've got your big roof spoiler at the back and the side vanes that just help the airflow around it. Right, don't need to go on about it, done a proper proper walk around when we did our sneak peek of the car, and as I say, it hasn't changed that much. But I think it has changed for the better. I think this is a really handsome looking car. Right classy, as I say, they've managed to make it look quite premium, I think. But it doesn't really matter what I think, does it? It matters what you think. Have you got an Enyaq at the moment? Do you like the look of the new car? Do you like the new tech deck across the front? Do you prefer your car? Do you prefer neither? Would you prefer a Volkswagen ID.4? Or would you go for the smaller Elroq? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, one area that definitely didn't need to change was its practicality. It's still got 585 litres of boot space in the SUV. If you go for the coupe body style, that only drops to 570. So the coupe is still very, very practical. It's one of the biggest cars in this class. If you fold down the rear seats, and you've got a 60-40 split with a load through, but if you fold down the rear seats, it'll take total capacity up to 1,710 litres on the SUV, 1,610 on the coupe. Now obviously I don't have all my luggage and suitcases here, but we've obviously tested the car before, we know what it's like. But there's some in my bags. There's my overnight bag and my camera bag. You still got obviously the nicely damped sort of like, you know, shelf there. You still get cable storage underneath the boot floor as well, and also as well tucked in the side here you get some nice little cable storage bits and pieces as well, although I do think they're an option in fairness. You've also got things such as the ability to fold down the rear seat from the boot, so you just pull that lever there and that knocks the rear seat down. And of course you've still got things such as the fold out hooks. Škoda are really practical about stuff like this, you know, and this is what I really like about Škoda. They've got some just practical, sensible people there that think, what do people actually use the car for? What do they need the car for? You know, silly things like you've got an ice scraper in the rear hatch. It used to be in the fuel cap, but obviously you don't have a fuel cap in an electric car. But in saying that, do you need an ice scraper in an electric car? Whoop. It's also got kick thing as well now, sorry. You do need an ice scraper in an electric car because obviously you can just preheat it, you know, but of course you've got things like the umbrellas in the door. But very practical, always has been. That hasn't changed with the new one, exactly the way it was. Which means rear seat space is exactly the same as well. Now, that's not my driving position because the seat slides back when I get out of the car. So that has actually slid back from where it was for me. So you can see I've got absolutely acres of space here. The only thing I will say about MEB cars, they are a little bit tight to get your feet underneath the front seats. I like my seat all the way down. But in fairness, it doesn't feel as pushed up as some cars do. Now, you do get a good bench across the back, and you've got this area here, this storage box that you can take out if you need to get 3 people across, and you will get 3 people across. You know, it's a very good car as far as that is concerned. There's USB-C connectors down there. It's a tri-zone climate system, climate control system is standard. So front driver and front passenger, and then rear passengers can adjust their climate as well. This particular car's got heated rear seats as well. No pan roof in this one. The coupe gets the pan roof as standard, I think. I might be wrong in that. I will correct myself if I'm not. But no pan roof in this particular car here, but that's okay. You get good access to the ISOFIX points with the clip-out plastics, that hatches that just fold down. You get, oh, he says, a good armrest with fold-out cup holders as well. Decent door bins as well, which are deep, that will take another water bottle, and depending on the options you go for, whether you get the rear blinds in the back for the kids as well. So, as I say, that hasn't changed either. So, practicality-wise, still one of the best in class. Right, this is again, like the outside, pretty much as was before. Again, you get this sort of like dark chrome here around the dashboard here. Now, it depends on the interior trim spec you go for. I think it's quite confusing, personally, the way Škoda do it. I don't know whether you agree with me or not, but I just do think trying to get the packs and all the rest of it's all a bit confusing. But I'll go through it with you anyway. But the main talking point is, pretty much, it's as usable and as brilliant interior as it always has been. 13-inch touchscreen up here, which has now got updated software on it and things like that, and things are a lot easier to use. The Škoda, in fairness, I always thought was one of the best of the Volkswagen Group brands anyway. I like the clarity of it. It's just nice and simple, isn't it? Look at that. It's all nice and easily laid out. Obviously, things like wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto come on the car as well. But now you've got quicker access to certain things. So, for instance, when you're up here, for instance, if you're driving along, you touch that. Do you want to deactivate lane assist? Okay. And it's the same if the speed limit warning's up there. Also, I'm not driving at the moment, so it won't come up. So you just press, there's some shortcut buttons. And if you swipe down, you can also program in more shortcut buttons as well. So that's excellent. The climate control is still controlled through the screen. You can see there, but again, relatively simple and straightforward to do. But if there is a physical button for it down here. If I press climate, it brings up the actual climate menu. Okay, plus there's voice activation where you can ask it to say, you know, warm my hands, cool my feet, whatever, you know, as well. So that's pretty decent. Heated seats on the car, heated steering wheel is also standard across the range as well. So that's been improved. The other big change as well is towards its driver assistance systems. And I'll talk a bit more about that when we're actually driving the car. And I have to say, one of the best for it. Really impressed with the driving assistance systems on this car. So that's superb. Škoda, superb. Yeah, so that's the screen. Don't need to talk about that too much. The rest of it is, as you see, I love this recycled sort of trim that's in here. This is lovely. I love that. And the whole interior just feels solid. Škoda, in terms of their build quality, are way ahead of Audi now, as far as I'm concerned. You know, this soft rubbery touch up in the top here, then you've got this beautiful Alcantara along the dash and in the middle of the doors, and you get squidgy rubber on the top of the doors as well. It's only until you get and the Alcantara down the centre console and across the armor, it's only until you get right down you come across plastic, and even then it's good quality stuff that's well built. So hats off to you, Škoda, can't complain about that. The other thing that I'm going to commend them for, oh hang on, sorry about that, folks, I put it into drive. The other thing they need to be commended for is, look, physical buttons on the steering wheel. None of this touchy, swipey stuff like Audi have gone down. That's it. Škoda have stuck with physical buttons. So you get your scroll wheel for your volume over here, and then you get more across this side as well for tuning, and depending obviously what functionality you're in as well. Plus the buttons on the side of it, you actually have to physically press. You can't do it by accident by hitting your heel of your hand. So you can change the thing like your what do you call it, your driver's display up there. You can change what you see from that as well on that one. And you can obviously alter track selection from over there, plus use the voice, plus turn the heated steering wheel on. 3-stage heated wheel, there you go. And then your brake recuperation paddles, your column stocks as you remember, and your cruise control down there, which now helps with this travel assistant upgrade. Wireless charging pad down in there. You still get that. Cup holders are still too small as far as I'm concerned. They'll take that size of water bottle, but they won't. They'll just take that, but they certainly wouldn't take my big Yeti coffee flask if I had that there. So that's a wee bit disappointing. Škoda, you need to change that. Storage there. Big deep armrest with a removable bit in it as well. A bin in there. And it's also height adjustable, he says. Yeah, there we go. Plus you get the storage underneath there as well. The seats, absolutely superb. I have been driving this car all day today. When we landed at Prague this morning, got handed the keys to it, and it is now 20 to 6 in the afternoon, and I really haven't stopped this car. I've driven it for hours and hours, and I don't feel like I have. The seats are fantastic. Really comfortable, very supportive, just long enough in the squab to support the back of your knees. Nice shoulder support and good lateral support down the side. Now, I did say about those trim levels. Let me just run you through it. This car here is the equivalent of, spec-wise, this is an edition model, okay? So you've got SEL as the starter, edition, and then sport line. It's not called edition in Europe, it's called something else, but this is effectively an edition line here. But this is my problem here. Once you get the car, you then have six interior finishes to choose from. Loft, lounge, lodge, 2 versions of suite. I think one's called cognac and one's black, and then sport line, and sport line's in a different trim level altogether. It's very confusing. It's very confusing. Now, did I say, yeah, this is a lounge car. So this has got the lounge interior, which I think's lovely. I really like this with Alcantara, and it's nice in the grey as well. You get nice ambient lighting around it too. Driver's display, that's as before, inset into the dash, nice and clear, not massively configurable, but gives you enough information. but you also get a really good head-up display depending on the trim spec as well. And as I say, it's the build quality that continues to impress. It's absolutely off the chart. Fabulous build quality from the car. The best out of all the Volkswagen Group cars, beyond a shadow of doubt. This is the best interior, you know, that you get in terms of the quality of it from all of the cars. I recently drove the Cupra Tavascan. You haven't seen that video yet because I've not edited as yet. It's got a really nice stylish interior. I do like the Tavascan's interior, but in terms of the quality, I think the Škoda does edge it out. Although, like the Škoda, the Tavascan uses some really nice materials in the car. So, you know, it depends obviously what you're after. But I think if you're just after a good, solid, dependable family car, and you're looking at things such as the ID4, the Enyaq, and maybe say the Audi Q4 e-tron, to me, this is the one you should have, because I love this interior. Brilliant. Right, let's talk about batteries now, because this has changed and this is quite important, okay? So the old 50 that you used to get is gone now. It's been replaced by the 60. It used to be a 60, it's back, and it replaces the 50 model, okay? And that has a 59 kilowatt hour usable capacity battery. So if you go for the 60, it's a 59 kilowatt hour battery you get. And that should see a range of up to 268 miles. Now, if you go for the 60, you can only get it as an SUV at the moment. You can't get a coupe with the 60 battery, nor can you get an SEL coupe, if that makes sense. So if you're going for an SEL 60, it's only going to be an SUV. Can't get the coupe body style in that. Right, then you got to this car, which is an 85, and this gets a 77 kilowatt hour battery, okay? And it's available either as a single motor car, which this one is, or what they call the 85X, which is dual motor. But the power doesn't change. The 85X just has the same amount of power distributed across two motors, okay? So it's more for traction than anything else. Right. The mileage you get in this car here, if you go for the SUV, it's going to be 359 miles. But if you go for the coupe, then it goes up to 365 miles because of the slipperier shape, okay? So that's the most efficient cars if you go for those two. If you go for the 85X with the dual motor, those mileages drop to 332 and 334 miles respectively. You're going to be looking at, if you're careful with it, around about 300 miles on the bigger battery car, which I think is excellent in fairness. And given the efficiency I've seen from it today, I don't think that's out of the question at all. Charging speeds, they're a bit odd in some ways, because if you go for the 60, it gets a maximum charging speed of 165 kilowatts. But if you go for an 85, it drops to 135 kilowatts. But if you go for an 85X, it jumps up to 175 kilowatts. I don't understand that. But the times that you should know about is 10 to 80%, which means 24 minutes on the 60 and 28 minutes on the 85 and 85X. So there you go. I don't know why it's the same on the 85 and 85X with different charging speeds, but there you go. As I say, obviously you've got you can only buy the 60 in the coupe body style. All batteries are lithium ion in construction, and for the first time the car also comes, although not on the smaller battery, only on the big battery, you'll also get vehicle to home bi-directional charging. Right, Enyaq out on the open road. There was a bit of a question in my mind whether or not, you know, what would Škoda actually do to make the Enyaq drive any better. You know, let's be honest, it was always a good car. It was a real favourite of ours, and a real favourite of mine. It was sort of one of those cars, not unlike the original Kia Niro. When somebody said to me, I just want, you know, a good all-round family wagon, I'm thinking of going electric and I just need a good big family car, what would you recommend? You'd go, buy an Enyaq, you know? But of course, since the Enyaq came out, the class has grown, you know, and we'll talk about the competition in the competition section. And there's a lot of choice out there. And of course, Škoda themselves have brought the Elroq out, which is, you know, I know I said it was a small car. It's not a small car. You know, a lot of people that said, you wrote in and said, Brian, you're rubbish. You know, it's not a small car, it's a big car. And in fairness, it is. It's the same wheelbase. It's shorter than the Enyaq, but it's the same wheelbase. So it makes you think, you know, oh, you know, have they shot themselves in the foot a little bit? How can they make the Enyaq any better? Well, they have. This thing drives beautifully, okay? You have a choice at the moment of 3 variants. There's the 60 model, okay? So that gives 204 PS, 310 Newton meters of torque, single motor, 0 to 60, 8.1 seconds, okay? Then you get this car, which is an 85 with a single motor, okay? And that's 286 PS, 545 Newton meters of torque, and an 0 to 60 time of under 7 seconds. Then you have the 85X, which, believe it or not, is the same power as this, same power and torque, but with dual motors. So there's no real power difference in terms of that. It's purely traction and stuff, okay? And how does it drive? Well, it drives, when I say it drives the same as before, I mean that in the right sense. You know, they've changed it, and there are changes to the car, but nothing that you're going to find, you know, alien. Nothing that you're going to go, oh, why have they done that? Because, you know, all they've done is improved what has gone before. And as I say, it was already a brilliant car. Now it's even better. When I say this has got to be one of the quietest and most refined cars that I've tested, I really do mean that. This thing is biblically smooth and refined. We just stopped a little bit back there to grab a little bite to eat, and one of the guys that's on the launch with me that works for another publication said to me the only car that he's driven electric that's quieter than this is a Rolls-Royce Spectre. And I'm inclined to believe him. I don't think that was it. Look, cobbles. You'd never know. What have they done to this thing? How is it so smooth? It's like Škoda have just taken, you know, the MEB platform and gone, right, okay, well, you know, they've really dug down into it and gone, right, what are we going to keep? Right, well, the rest of it, we'll chuck that away and we'll do what we think's right. Because they've got this absolutely nailed. Now, a little bit of a spoiler alert here, okay? I test drove, or reviewed, the Cupra Tavascan a couple of weeks ago, okay? I've been that busy, I haven't had time to get the video edited as yet. And I was quite impressed with the Tavascan, and I did say in that video, or I have said in that video, that until I drive the new Enyaq, I think that could be the choice of the MEB platform cars, you know, those SUVs. Well, I'm driving the Enyaq, and I'm getting this video before it, and I can tell you now, I'd have this before the Tavascan. And the Tavascan's really good. This is on another level. This really is. It's way better than the ID4 and the ID5, which are good cars. You know, I don't mind them. You know, they're not my favourites, but they're good cars. It's way better than the Audi Q4 e-tron, you know. And again, I like the Audi. It's a great wee car, but it's not as good as this. This is brilliant. And as I say, most of it is down just sheer, down to the comfort of the car, the sheer refinement of it. I can't get over how quiet this thing is. Now, interestingly enough, I drove up to Stansted Airport last night to fly out this morning in the new Xpeng G6. And last week I drove the BYD C-Line 7, which obviously you saw the review of, or hopefully you saw the review of at the tail end of last week. And they're two new entrants into this market, obviously, where the original sort of like Enyaq was. And they're two new Chinese brands, and I was quite curious to find out, to see whether or not, you know, they really were as good as something like the Enyaq, because I say the Enyaq was not getting on a bit, but you know what I mean, it's been out, what, 4 years now, 4 years now. No, not as good as this. And it's interesting because the only way I can describe it without sort of spoiling the G6's review is, you tend to sit on that car, and because you sit on it, you don't feel, and it'll sound corny, so forgive me on this, you don't feel quite as at one with it. So in other words, if the car goes into a change of attitude, so a fast corner, or, you know, sort of like you hit some hard bumps or something like that, you tend to bounce on the seat, and you tend to feel like you're on the car, not in it. The Enyaq, you feel like you're in it, so you move with the car. So as you move, you know, as you pitch the car into a bend, you move with it. You know, as you go around the bend, you know, you still feel firmly planted. It doesn't feel uncomfortable that way. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's a sensation that I find hard to describe, but because you're really in the car, you're moving with it, and it's not uncomfortable. And the suspension itself, the compliancy, the spring and damper rates, even though this car's on sort of like, 20-inch alloys, you'd never tell. And okay, yes, I appreciate we're on relatively smooth roads in the Czech Republic, but it will not be night and day of a difference when you get it to the UK. This thing's biblically comfortable. The steering, that's the other thing as well. The steering. The difference again with some of the newer brands where you've got a wheel that, again, you feel slightly detached from the experience. You turn the wheel, the wheels respond. You turn the steering wheel, the front wheels respond. Yes, of course it does. It goes around the corner, but you're not getting any real feedback. You're not exactly sure of the attitude of the front wheels. You are in the Enyaq. There's just a bit, there's just that resistance off the dead ahead that as you start to turn, you can just, you feel like you're doing it. You feel like you're pushing the car into the corner. There's a good level of grip from the car, even in this single motor one. There is going to be a VRS, a performance model, but genuinely speaking, I'm not sure that it's absolutely needed in some respects, because this, I think, is as quick as you'd need a car to be. But above all of that, as I say, the thing that gets me is the refinement. I can't get over how good this. When we drove the Elroq, as I say, I thought, surely they're not going to get another car that's as good as that. Well, they have, and it's this. Now, I want to talk a couple of things about driver assistance systems, because this is one area where Škoda have really concentrated on with this car, the advanced driver assistance systems. Now, normally I get in a car and turn them off. Can't be doing with them. I'd rather to drive the car. This thing here's got a thing called Travel Assistant. And as we came out of Prague this morning and onto the motorway, I thought, well, let's just give it a go. So I put it on, and it was on the cruise control. It's difficult to describe. I've never driven anything that's as smooth and as helpful as this. So when there was a change of speed limit, so as you went from, say, 80 kilometers an hour up to 130, and then, back down to 80 at a certain, maybe a junction or something like that, the way the car accelerated and then slowed down was so smooth. There was no real sudden slap. Even if the car in front, pulled out on you or slowed down quite aggressively, the way this car reacted to it was really smooth. It's probably, I'd say it's probably the best advanced driver assistance systems that I've driven on one of these cars. For me, somebody that doesn't like them, because it just didn't feel like it was taking over. It felt like it was helping rather than being a hindrance almost. So so there was no sudden braking or accelerating of it and things like that. And then you just set your speed limit. And again, just with the column stock, it was easy. When it changed, if you were using the cruise control yourself, and you're going from 130 kilometers an hour into an 80 limit, you just knock it down 10 kilometers an hour at a time. And it just knocked it down 2 steps, and it went down, and then the car just very slowly just pulled up. It was really smooth, really good. There's also a lane sort of like change assist as well. Now, I must admit, I was trying to get it to work properly and I couldn't get it to do it, but I think that was more pilot error than the car. But allegedly what happens is, as you're driving along with your cruise control on and you want to overtake something, if you nudge the indicator, the car will check the blind spot, and it will check your blind spot, it will tell you if it's safe to do so, and you nudge the indicator and the car will pull out for you. Now, I couldn't quite get it to do it, but as I say, I have a funny feeling that's pilot error, not the car. But that's something that has to be applauded as well. Now, obviously, you get your normal sort of driving modes as well. So you get your, in fact, hang on, where is it down here? Mode, let's press the button. Eco, comfort, normal, sport, and individual. So your usual suspects. An individual, you can also set the car up how you want it as a driver, and then, you've got slightly heavier steering or a slightly more heavier throttle because you want to be more economical or whatever. Or you go into the sport when it's, where it's a bit more sort of like sharper on things. The comfort mode is what I've been driving around in today because, let's be honest, it's a family car. That's what you're going to be driving around in. I'm coming away from this just thinking how impressed I am with the new Enyaq. As I say, I genuinely thought it'll just drive like the old one. You know, there's no way they could have done too much to it. There won't be much that you can do to the car, you know. And maybe, yes, you're going to turn around and say, well, yeah, just go for an Elroq, you know. It does everything an Enyaq does. Do you really need anything else? Well, you know what? It doesn't drive just like the old car. It is better. And yes, I can understand that maybe from a financial point of view, you could argue that, well, the Elroq does everything I need a car to do. Do I need anything else? If you don't need the space, then that's absolutely fine. And it's not exactly a small car, the Elroq. But if you do want this more space, and you do want, dare I suggest, you know, different batteries, you do want a bit more performance, and you do want the very best, dare I suggest, that Škoda build, then you need to buy an Enyaq. Because this is probably one of the best family cars of any description that I can think of that has been. It's absolutely fantastic. It really is. Now, pricing, okay? The range starts at £39,000 for an SEL 60. Remember, that's a coupe-only body style, okay? And that's before options. And then you go for £40,100 for the same battery on the Edition model, so the next trim level up, the medium, this one here, the Edition, okay? The bigger batteried 85 Edition, because you can't get the bigger battery in an SEL, remember? Clear? That starts at 44,300. So this car here is 44,300. Although it's 46,200 if you want it as a coupe. Okay? And then an 85X Sportline. The Sportline only comes with the dual motors. That will cost you 48,750 for the SUV or 50,650 for the coupe. But then just remember, you then have to add on those packs. Okay, so you go onto your, what was it I was saying earlier, you go onto your loft, I think the loft is standard, then you have your optional lounge, lodge, and then two versions of the suite, but the Sportline is the Sportline, which comes in 85X, and that's a separate entity. It is a bit confusing, I have to say, but as I say, just watch your pricing, because as I say, whilst they look good on the first acquaintance, remember you've got to add those packs on, and then there's some option packs as well, so that price can creep up, so do be warned. Now, the competition for the car, well, it's as before, but as I say, remember, since the Enyaq was launched, this class has grown substantially from then. So you've obviously got things such as your usual suspects, your Volkswagen ID4 and ID5 twins, you know. You've also got Audi's Q4 e-tron, which is available as full-size SUV and Sportback as well. And as I say, we now have the addition of the Cupra Tavascan, which is a coupe-only sort of like style of car, so that will compete with Enyaq Coupe in that way. But of course, the MEB platform has now been also used by Ford. So we've now got to also consider things such as the Ford Explorer and the Ford Capri as well. Again, if you're going for that sportier looking coupe style of SUV. We've obviously got cars such as the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6, maybe the sort of like the bottom rung Genesis GV60. If you're looking at top of the line Enyaq, you might be into a GV60, but that is very much a premium brand in terms of its pricing point of view. So those are the cars that are coming across from the Korean manufacturers. From Japan, we've got things such as the Toyota BZ4X and Subaru Solterra, and of course Nissan's Ariya as well. We've also got the ubiquitous Tesla Model Y to consider too, but obviously it's fallen out of favour a little bit now. I've talked about that in some of my other reviews that are going to be coming up soon for the reasons for that. But obviously, I don't think it'll have escaped your notice that Tesla aren't exactly everyone's flavour of the month at the moment. And of course, there's those other brands that I've just been talking about. There's some new Chinese brands which have come into the market space since obviously the Enyaq was first launched. And that's things such as Leap Motor with the C10. We've also got things such as the BYD C-Line 7 that I tested the other day as well, and a car that I drove to the airport in, the new Xpeng G6. So cars which have come into this market space since the Enyaq was first introduced. There's plenty of them, and there's more coming. And of course, we've also got, I haven't even mentioned the Stellantis group cars as well, if you think about it, because you've got Vauxhall's Grandland, you've got Peugeot with the E3008 and E5008 as well. So it's a tough call, it's a tough competition that the Enyaq faces, but remember, it also faces competition from within its own ranks as well, because the Elroq's there as well. So here's what we like, and also what we don't like about Škoda's new Enyaq. Well, we love its new design. It's still very spacious and practical. There's a huge improvement on its refinement. It has good range and efficiency. And of course, the Škoda's brilliant build quality. But for us, there's the useful application of driving assistance systems and technology that has to be commended. We don't like. While the price can creep up with some of the options, the warranty's still not as good as some of its competitors, and the Elroq isn't much smaller. The Enyaq has always been a real firm favourite of ours at AutoEV, and it's obviously been a firm favourite with the buying public, because Škoda have managed to shift over 250,000 of the things since it was introduced just over 5 years ago. But as I say, it was under a lot of pressure from some of the newer competition and a lot of Chinese competition, which has started to creep into the European market and of course the UK as well. But more so than that, it was starting to really see some firm competition from within its own ranks, because as I say, the Elroq actually isn't that much smaller than this car, and it's a really good little car, the Elroq. Oh, I'm saying little, it's not that little, you know what I mean though. It's a good car. So it was questionable, would you actually want an Enyaq? Do you need an Enyaq in some respects? And I was thinking about that all day today, because I've always thought that in terms of the way this family, sort of like medium-sized family crossover market is, I've always had a fun favourite, the Renault Scenic E-Tech. To me has been the best family car in that market space. You know, it really sees off the majority of the competition, and to me it really edged the Enyaq out a little bit in some respects, because it was just a little bit, I don't know, it felt a bit more refined, it felt a little bit better, and in some respects I'd trade off some of the space for what the Renault gave me. But the improvements that Škoda have made to this have now turned that on its head. I now think that the Enyaq is back at the top. I think this is the best medium-sized, all-electric family SUV you can buy. It's big, it's comfortable, it's spacious. It's beautifully refined to drive. I can't go over the refinement of this car. It's so quiet to drive, it's so smooth. Yes, there are cars that dare I suggest maybe are a little bit more dynamic, that are maybe a bit quicker, or maybe charge a bit faster, or go a little bit further on a charge. But as a family car, there isn't a better one in this market space as I'm concerned. Škoda have made sure that the Enyaq remains very firmly at the top. Thank you for watching another road test review on AutoEV in what has become slightly fading evening light. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, make sure you give it a little thumbs up underneath there. And of course, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are you an Enyaq driver? Are you tempted by the new facelift? Or have you gone down? Have you ordered an Elroq because you don't see the point in going for something this size now and you want something a bit cheaper? Let me know that as well. Oh, make sure you're subscribed as well. I meant to say that to you. Once you've done that, press the bell button, because then you'll receive notification when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. And trust me, we have so much content coming, you will not want to miss a single bit of it. Now, if you're interested in social media, we're across all of those things as well. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, LinkedIn, we're there as well. So give us a follow there, please. And if you're in the marketplace for an electric car, it might not be a new Škoda Enyaq, maybe you're thinking about a second-hand Škoda Enyaq, but you need to know all the information about the old car. How do you find that out? Well, here's how. Stay on the AutoEV homepage on the YouTube channel, and just at the top there, you'll see a little magnifying glass. And if you type the name of the car you're interested in that wee magnifying glass, then if we've road tested it in the last 5 or 6 years, because it's been a new electric car in the UK, then of course it's been subjected to the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. Believe it or not, folks, it's still the AutoEV one. All it remains for me to say is thank you ever so much for watching. Thank you for the time to support the channel. I'll see you again soon. I'm going for a pint.